Hi, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today on planning your career for professional growth. My name's Jean Balfour, and I'm the CEO of Bailey Balfour and also Program Director of our Coach Certification Program. What I'm going to do today is take you on a journey really about how to reflect on your career, acknowledging that at this time of the year, often people are thinking about their careers, thinking about what's happened in 2018 and what can I look forward to in 2019. And so today I'm going to introduce you to some ways that I go through thinking about this, some tips and tools and techniques. We're working with GoToWebinar today, and there are a number of ways that you can interact with me. We'll do a couple of polls, and that's one of the ways that we can interact with each other. But also there's an opportunity for you to ask questions. If you have a look at the panel on the right-hand side, you'll see a questions tab. Please do type into the questions tab any questions you have, and at various points during the webinar, I will pause to answer those questions and help you reflect. I'd like to welcome people today from all around the world. We've got people from Australia, Malaysia, Philippines, Mali, Vietnam, China, Spain, Singapore, Cambodia, Indonesia, Hong Kong, and the UAE. And welcome to those of you who will also join us watching the recording afterwards. We run these webinars at lunchtime in Singapore as an opportunity to pause, but acknowledging that for some of you this will be morning and for others of you this will be evening. But it's certainly an opportunity today to pause and reflect on where we are in our career. To introduce ourselves, we are a consultancy based in Singapore, but working globally, and we do three main things. We first of all provide coach certification, and we're accredited with the International Coach Federation. We have a new program, in fact, starting in January. We also teach coaching skills for leaders in organisations. This is to enable them to be more effective in their leadership and management of their people, and we provide executive coaching to people both in organisations and individuals who approach us personally who are seeking some reflection on their career or their life. And what we're going to do today is go on a journey. We're going to start with reflecting, looking back. Where have I come from? What have been the highs and lows of 2018? And what does that tell me? What does it tell me about my values, perhaps about my brand and my strengths? And that helps us to give some clues about where we're going. What do we want to achieve in 2019? And then we'll finish with a few first steps. To engage with this, let's just think about this poll. So I'm going to open the poll up for you now and asking this question. Sorry, just bear with me. I seem to have a technical problem here. Asking this question, do you have a clear plan for your career? So just bear with me while I open the poll. I now have control of my mouse, which I didn't have a minute ago. There we are. So you should see the poll open on your screen now. And if you could type in that you have either, yes, you have a clear plan, you know where you're going. Maybe you've got some idea, a little bit of a plan, or no, it's something that you're kind of is emerging and leaving to chance. Nothing necessarily wrong with that, by the way. It's just that many of us have different opportunities for this. So great. Many of you have voted. If anybody else wants to vote, just if you do that now, and then I'll close the poll and share the results. When we're doing the polls, nobody can see who it is that's voting. It's an anonymous poll. Okay, so let me share the results with you now. So what you can see is that there are a few people who are saying, yes, you have a clear plan. Great, so you know what you're doing, and perhaps today is an opportunity just to reflect on that plan. Many of you saying, I've got some idea, but I'm not really very clear. So again, today is an opportunity to reflect on that. And for those of you who don't have a plan, today is perhaps an opportunity to reflect on, do you need one? For some people, actually not having a plan works very well, but for others it's important. So today might give you some tools and techniques to think about what is good for you. So let's start with reflecting on where we come from. I grew up with this idea that it's very good to look back over our past and our history and our story, because that helps give us really important information about where we might want to go in the future. Some of you may have seen this exercise called the career line, and this is something that I do both for myself, and it's also something I use with coaching clients a lot. And this is something that you might choose to do yourself. You could choose to do it on your own, or perhaps with a friend or a colleague in a peer coaching situation. And what you do is you basically think about key points in your life, both your personal life and your working life. And you can start as young as you want. You might start very early and think about what were your early schooling experiences, or you might start if you went to university, at university, or when you left school, or your first job. And you perhaps put each of those events on a little post-it, and then you think about, was that event a high or a low? Was that a good point in my career or my life? Was it a medium point, or was it a lower point? So, for example, for some of us, we have jobs that really actually fulfill us and we feel very motivated and energized in those jobs. You might put that on a high point. Other roles actually are a bit draining and we end up feeling perhaps a bit bored or uninspired. That might be a low point. So you start plotting your different experiences on this line over the period of your life, over your age. Then when you've done that, you can begin to look back on it and be curious and think, so those high points, what was it that made them high points? So I know that when I look back on my own career, what I see is that the high points always involved working with people, helping people learn and grow. They also involve some challenge, because I know for me, personal challenge and growth is very important. I look at the low points, often clues about my values. So I had a values clash with an organisation, or I wasn't being challenged, or the people around me weren't helping me learn and grow as much as I was helping them learn and grow. And so you then begin to see themes. So my themes are challenge, people, and I like good alignment with my own values in the work I'm doing. So this is an exercise that you could do. And these questions, as I've said now, might help you to do that. You think about, what are the high points in your career? What was it about those times that made them high points? What are some of the achievements you're most proud of? What are the things that you've done that you felt really fulfilled about? For me, one of mine was completing my master's degree. It was a really good moment in my career, both the journey of the studying, but also the completing of the qualification. Which organisations were you at your best? What helped this to happen? What were the low points? What was it that made them low? As I've said, I kind of know what my low points were and what created that. And then what themes do you see emerging, and what do those themes tell you? And then finally, you might want to look and think, so what were the skills? What was I doing? And what was it about the work situation or the people that helped me with those high points and low points? Were the particular skills that I was using that I really enjoyed using? Was it the type of people I was working with? Was it the work situation? Where was I at my happiest in those spaces? And as you do this, you can do this over your entire working life, but you might choose to do it just for 2018 and think month by month. What's 2018 been like? What was it like in January? Was I in a high or low? February, March, or maybe Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4? You could do it on that scale to help you reflect on this year and what's happened in this year. And part of what you might do in this process is particularly think about your strengths and think about, what are your 5 key strengths. I'm a strong believer that building a career based around what we're good at, what we enjoy, is actually a really important thing, because it takes a lot of energy for us to develop in areas. I hold a growth mindset, so I believe it's possible for us to develop in most areas. However, sometimes aligning with our strengths can help us to really be energized and enjoy our work more. So as you look back, perhaps over 2018, where were you at your happiest and what strengths were you using during that time? If you're stuck about your strengths, And sometimes people are. I often ask people to write down 5 weaknesses and they can do that very quickly. 5 strengths is harder. If you're stuck, you could try this exercise. You could send an email or ask 10 people what are the 5 words they would use to describe your strengths. I've invited a few coaching clients to do this. And whilst it's a bit of a bold act, so choose people you trust, people were really surprised. They were energized and empowered by what people said about them. And they saw very clearly themes about their strengths, and that helped them to really think about what they were going to do moving forward in their career. Another way that you can do this is to help your strengths come alive, because we often say, for example, I'm good at relationship building. What does that mean? And how would I describe that to somebody? So think about it. This example is, well, I know I'm good at building relationships with clients. Recently, a client told my project manager how much they enjoyed working with me and that I added value to their business. So for each of your strengths, have a look at them and think, what is it that makes it a strength? What brings it alive? And that will give me some clues about what 2019 might look like. Here's some other questions to help you with this. So we've talked about your personality strengths, what you enjoy, career successes. Where's your expertise? What about training and professional qualifications? What positive feedback have you had this year? What have people said about you, about the things that you're good at? How did you make a difference in people's lives over the year? And really, are there niche areas? Are there areas that you stood out in that you know are really strong for you? There's also a very good book called The Strengths Finder, which is widely available. And this identifies a lot of different strengths. One of the things that comes with the book when you buy it is that it has a single use code for an online test, which brings out your top 5 strengths. And I know for many, many people who have done this, they've found it a very valuable experience because it's helped to put language around the strengths that they have that then helps them to articulate those with other people. So in all of this, it's really about reflecting on the year maybe, and we've talked about this, but I want to pull a couple of other points out here. Firstly, what are you most proud of this year? So can you look back and think, during this year, there's a couple of things that actually make me very proud. I was brought up not really to talk about things I was proud about, but actually I think the things we're proud about give us good clues about strengths, enjoyment, work satisfaction. But also, who in my network have I valued the most? Who have been the people around me who have given me the most encouragement, perhaps, or the best critical feedback? Those are good people in our network too. Who are those people? And perhaps how might I thank them as the year draws to an end? What did I learn this year? When I look back, what are the things that I've learnt? And what also do I wish I'd learnt or I wish I'd achieved? And what does that tell me about 2019? So that's the starting point for reflecting. It's just a few examples that I have. You can probably think of other things that you might do to reflect on 2019. So I'm actually going to pause here and see if anybody's got any questions about this stage, or if you've got any other suggestions about how you reflect and look back over a year. Please type these into the question box and then I'll be able to answer them as we go through. So if you have any questions at this point, please open the question tab on the side and type in your questions. Or if you've got something to share, if you type that in there, I will also be able to read those out. Just to say that if the questions are anonymous, so I won't be sharing who asks the questions in that space. So let's move on and think about where am I going and the future. So I really do hold that as we look out over the past year or over our career, we can begin to see these themes and patterns, and they begin to give us clues about where we're going and to begin to help us to think about dreaming and thinking about the future. And one way to do this, if you're a bit stuck, is actually not to think about the whole year, but what would an ideal day look like for you? So I'm going to take you through an exercise now and invite you to go on a journey with me as I guide you through thinking about your ideal day. Now, as I do this, I encourage you to kind of sit wherever you are. Imagine many of you are in offices or perhaps at lunch places. So you don't need to close your eyes or anything, but I'd encourage you to go with me on the journey as I take you through this. So imagine that you went home tonight and had a very deep sleep. You wake up tomorrow morning, and as if a miracle had happened, it's January 2020 and you're in your ideal job. 2019 worked really well for you, and it helped you move into a space that you feel is really good for you at this moment in your career. You're excited to get up and go to work. So, what do you do to prepare for your day before you leave home? What sort of clothes do you put on? What other preparations do you do for your day? And then when you leave the house, where do you travel to for work? How long does it take you to get there? What sort of transport do you use to get to work? Then when you get to work, what's your work environment like? Are you working in an office? Are you working outdoors? Are you sitting in a room on your own? Are you surrounded by other people? Are you working with people closely? Are you working in a role where you're very independent and working on something on your own? What is the work that you're doing? What's the actual work that you do during your day? And how is that work stimulating and developing you? How does it keep you excited and motivated? Who are your clients or customers? Are they internal clients? Are they external clients? Are you working for yourself? Who are your key stakeholders? Who are the people who have an impact on you and your career? And what's changed since today, December 2018, and this day, January 2020? And what stayed the same? So I'd invite you to think about those questions and maybe just to jot down any thoughts you had, particularly the surprising ones, maybe about what it is that you think you want in your career. And for all of us, our ideal day holds many things. I know for me, it holds doing things like this. It involves having coaching conversations with people, perhaps doing a bit of teaching. I also enjoy writing and reflecting and sharing information in that form. So I would want to create an ideal day with those things in it. But what about you? Do you want an ideal day with people? Would you prefer an ideal day working with data? Is it writing or is it managing or a bit of both? Are you leading? Are you presenting or training or networking? And all of these other things. This is not an exhaustive list. There are many, many lists like this. There's a very good book called What Colour is Your Parachute, which includes different activities. But you could begin to think about what are the activities in my ideal day? And how do my values align with that? So I've already talked about how important it is for me to align my work with my values. And I've many times gone back and revisited values questionnaires to do an assessment of, is the work that I'm doing in line with my values? This is a list of values that you could use that describes a range of different values, and you could take each of these and perhaps rank them or pull the top 5 out and think which of these values are most important to me. And so you could also do this using your career line or 2018 and think those high points, which were the values that helped me be there? And the low points, was there a misalignment of my values or which of my values might have been at risk? And this all helps you to think about values for 2019. How do I get alignment not only with my strengths and my skills, but also with my values? So what are the top 5 and how do I get good alignment with them in my organization? Just to say one thing about this, if you notice there's a disconnect with your values and your organization, that doesn't mean you have to leave. It may be that there's ways of either being aware of that. I think we always have a bit of a clash with at least one or two of our values, but being aware of it and understanding it can help us to be liberated by it. I remember once I left a job because I had a values clash with the organization and the way it was led. And I look back on that now and think, I wonder what would have happened if I'd stayed longer, been more aware of the values clash, and looked for ways to lead through it, look for ways perhaps to influence it. And I think there are opportunities for us to do that. So, really thinking about your values can be one of the things that you push forward into 2019 and think, how do I make sure there's alignment? Another tool that many of you will have seen is something that we either call a life compass or the wheel of life. And this is where you think about your life in the whole. So, of course, our working lives come in the whole of the rest of our lives. And it's important that we think about the integration between our professional life and our personal life. And using this can help you to do that. So we've got here how much do I feel that how important are my friends and family, and how aligned am I to them? Where am I in work-life balance? I personally hold that it's more about integration. Where am I in health and fitness, giving back to society, spirituality and personal growth, career and work, security, finances, hobbies and leisure, emotional well-being? You could put whatever you wanted on these. You don't have to put these. What you can do with this is think about how important are these to me. So the red line is how important. So for this person, emotional well-being, spirituality and personal growth, and work-life or life-work balance are incredibly important. Perhaps not unimportant, but slightly less important might be health and fitness. And that might be because this person already puts a lot of effort in and they're feeling pretty healthy and fit. It may be that hobbies and leisure are less important. So you can do that and then map where you are. Well, this person is looking like they're not very aligned at all, actually. They're feeling like there's really room for more alignment. Somebody else might say, actually, you know what? My work-life balance and emotional well-being is on track, but actually I don't feel that I'm giving back to society enough. And then you can look at this if you do it and think, okay, so for 2019, what can I do to get more alignment? How can I make sure that I'm more aligned with what it is that I'm looking for? So if you work with this, you first of all reflect on where are the alignment and where is the gap, and then what can you do about your gaps in 2019? Now, all through this journey, we're talking about planning for 2019 and perhaps setting some goals for the year related to our personal and professional growth, and particularly our career. Some of you might be thinking, it's still a bit foggy and I don't really know where I'm going. And that is perfectly fine. There is this analogy that as long as we think, I can work out what I could do in January to help me move towards the right direction, then that's fine. If we're driving in fog, or if there's a sandstorm or something where we can't see, all we can do is put our headlights on and drive slowly and look for the next path in the road. And that's perfectly fine. So you may be thinking now, I don't know, I really can't answer those questions about 1 year, 2 years out. But actually, I know what I enjoy, so maybe I'll just look for a few ways to get that in place in the beginning of next year. Others of you might have a really clear sense of direction, and some of you said, the 19% of you said, yep, I've got a clear career plan. I really know where I'm going. So in this process, you'll be thinking, okay, so how do I just make sure that the things we're talking about align with that plan? How do I make sure that my values and everything is moving in the right direction for my career plan? And I see this in the people I coach and also my friends and family. Some people went into their career, they knew exactly what they wanted to do, and that's what they did. And others said, look, I don't really know, but I know I like doing this, so why don't I do that first? Also perfectly fine. So if you're thinking about 2019 and then moving towards 2020, there are two things that you might happen. You might say, do you know, I'm not really clear about my career goals. So I would encourage you, if that's the case, to think about 5 keywords that might describe what you'd like to be doing in 2019 or 2020. And that might be that you say, well, I'd like to be working in a leadership role by that time, or I would like to be working on more complex projects. So you write down those 5 keywords, perhaps on cards even, and just hold them close, because that might help you to work out what you want to do. If you're one of the lucky people who's very clear, then you write those goals down. So important to write them down, because there's really clear research that the writing down of the goals helps us achieve them. It helps us keep on track and do that. Some people create a vision board and put pictures up on their vision board of the things they want to achieve, and I'm a great believer in vision boards and doing that. The other thing that might be very specific about you in a career, particularly if you're working in an organization, is to think about your next role that you'd like, and perhaps the next role after that, because that helps you think about who do you need to let know about that? Who are your key stakeholders who might have an influence about that? To think about stretch assignments, how do you get the experience, and to create a learning plan. So beginning to think in a bit of a granular way about those next steps can be very powerful. It's also really important to think about what you want, but also what are some of your needs. So we will have wants, all of us in our career, but actually there are some needs that we have. There are the practical realities. So is it that I don't want to travel far to my job? I once personally set a goal where I said I will go for the job interview, but it takes me more than an hour to get there. I won't take the job. Well, in fact, it took me an hour and 5 minutes, but I loved the job, so I took it, and I was really glad I did. But I had a goal, I had a boundary around that. If you have small children, it may be that it's really important for you over the next year that you are able to get home to put the children to bed to see them in the evenings. It may be that you have particular financial goals that it's important that you meet. So I think it's good for us to think about what we want, but also to hold those needs as being very practical and important, and they change over our career and over our lifetime. So they're not fixed. They're related to where we are at a particular part of our journey. And then we can begin to think about, how do we get there? How do we set a plan so that we can move forward? So it may be that you do something like this. You say, well, in the next 6 months, by June next year, 2019, I'm going to make sure I've got a really good concrete plan in place. And that plan is going to help me make sure that I'm in a leadership role, even if I've only got one person in my team, by 2020. And I'm really ambitious, and within 3 years, I'd like to have a regional role. Or maybe I'm just leading across a small part of the particular area that I work in, and then maybe 5 years leading across continents. This is a very ambitious career path. But I do think sometimes it's good to think those out, and then, because you can begin to think, how do I get there? How do I put a plan in place to move towards that? Now, leadership paths are not the only paths. It may be that you want to become an expert in your field, got no interest in leading people, but you'd like to become seen increasingly as an expert in that space. One of the important things to think about here is that careers are no longer linear. We used to describe a career as you get this job, then you get promoted, and you get this job, and you go up the ladder. But in fact, increasingly, as organisations have become less hierarchical and more flat, and also as roles have become more complex, it's really that we have to look at our career as in a more holistic way. And one of the ways of thinking about this is to think it's like a climbing wall. So we know that if you're going to get to the top of a climbing wall, many times you have to go sideways. And I think this is very true of careers. So what we have to think about is if I think in 5 years' time I want to be in that role, what is the experience I need, and how do I get that experience? It may not be that I'm going to get that experience by going up, and I may need to go sideways. I may need to look for different roles in different departments, different organisations even, in order to get that experience. The other thing is, I think careers are like a labyrinth. Every career has 1 or 2 roadblocks in it. And I'm privileged enough to coach some very senior executives. And when we talk about their career, they'll say that was the point in my career where I had a bit of a wall and I couldn't move. And that wall might be that they're working for somebody who's going to be in that role for a long time and they can't move beyond them, or working for a manager where they're struggling to connect, or being in a role that doesn't quite fit their strengths and skill set. And I believe that what we do then is we just have to accept it and not keep pushing against the wall, because we're not going to get through. We need to turn around, find another way around it, and think, what are the other creative things that I could do? So in this process, you'll be thinking about, how do I get there? So what do I need to do? And am I at that roadblock? What experience do I need to do? Do I need a new qualification? Sometimes that can feel a bit daunting, but really actually studying can be so liberating and empowering for us. Are there skills I need to develop? Are there people I need to talk to? And who's in my network? And how do I build the relationships and connections with them? Kind of curiously, what do I need to jettison? And by jettison, I mean throw overboard. So, am I networking too widely? Is it that I need to narrow that down and save my energy? Am I working on activities that are not good for me? And have I got the right people in? And I'm not saying reject people, but I may be saying being a bit more careful. Because sometimes people say that we're the sum of the 5 people we spend the most time with. Who are those people and how are they helping me in my career? Another thing you can do at this stage is, as you're thinking about the future and the roles that you want, is do some research. LinkedIn, of course, is hugely powerful for us here, but also looking at the organisation and look at the people who are in those jobs already. What experience do they have? How did they get there? So what qualifications did they do? What experience did they have? And then how does my experience match up? Now, of course, no 2 career journeys are the same. Yours won't be the same as theirs, but by understanding a range of people doing that, that can be very helpful for you. You might think about talking to people who are already in those roles and finding out what's their career journey and how they can help you. If you're really clear about the types of roles you want, what sort of relationship do you have with the hiring managers? What about the people who are in those roles because they may well become the hiring manager? What relationship do you have with them? And I've already talked about this. What sort of sideways moves might you need to take? And then you need a plan. Now, there are different ways of doing plans. This is quite a structured way where you would answer the questions. What do I need to do? What do I need to learn? What hurdles do I have? And who are the relationships I might need to build? And you could do this in a very structured way on a table, or you could do it as a mind map. And I know for me, this is my preferred approach. I would be more inclined, and you do this on a flip chart, or you can do it on pieces of do it on a software, and just think about, what's happened over the last year and where do I need to go? Who's going to help me achieve my goals? What do I need to stop doing? How do I overcome the hurdles? And doing it in a mind map can be a very powerful way of helping you think that through. So this is all about asking those things about, what do you need to do between now and the end of 2018? So what do you need to do in the next 3 weeks to create your plan? And what actions are you going to take in 2019? So I'm going to pause here and see if anybody's got any questions. I've got a few final thoughts, but this is, before we go there, I've got plenty of time for questions in this space. So as I said, if you've got a question, you can type it into the question box on the right-hand side. Perhaps while I'm seeing if anybody's got any questions, let me begin to share with you the final thoughts and tips that I have. The first one is, I really think that even if you don't need a career plan, take time to invest in reflecting on your career and thinking about where you've come from, because that might well help you to think about your future. Create a small group of those who love you. So pull some people around you to think about this. Perhaps do some exercises with them. You can do that in small peer coaching groups. You might want to think about how you look at this combination of opportunity and preparedness. So by this, I mean that opportunities will arise. And are you looking for those opportunities and saying yes to them? Or are you feeling a little bit like you've got imposter syndrome and you don't deserve it? I don't know how many of you saw that Michelle Obama's been talking this week about her own imposter syndrome, which seems incredible. But she's saying, who am I that people would listen to me? And here you are, if you're questioning that, maybe you want to think about, how can I take those opportunities and be prepared so that I have that sense of luck? Seek out feedback. I really strongly believe that feedback helps to give us good information. Ask people directly, what did I do well this year? What do you think I could do with improving on next year? Or what do you see as my strengths? Where did you see those coming out this year? You can create career buddies. I have two people in the UK who, for 20 years, we've met together. In fact, we're meeting together next week in London, who have really helped me think about my own career. And we meet regularly and talk about our career and our career journey and set goals. And it really helps us to be very clear. I don't think I'd be here today without those wonderful people, because they've helped me believe in myself. They've helped me set, stretch, and challenge goals. And they've been there for me when times have been challenging. Every career has challenging times in it. Don't be frightened to ask for help. I think in many organisations now, senior people are really willing to have conversations to help you think about what you might be doing. There are some books that can help you with this. These are some examples of those. The Career Coach is a very good book for kind of taking you through the different stages. Edgar Schein's Career Anchors looks at different values and things that might help you with your career. Stephen Cope's book is really about calling. It's a very different kind of book, but it's a beautiful story of different people and how they found their calling in life, some ordinary and some extraordinary people. So I'm going to come now, we've got some questions before we do. If I'm in a company where the values are completely different from mine, what are the chances that I transform into those values? But actually, I think that's really important, because that's about compromising on our transfer and on our own values. And the person goes on to say, will such transformation do more harm than good? And it may do if those values are misaligned with yours. So personally, I think the way to deal with that is to be very conscious of it and to think, first of all, to be pragmatic. So I don't believe that there's any organisations where our values 100% align with the organisation's values, because organisations are complex places. But if I'm explicitly aware of where that mismatch is, then if I'm asked to compromise my values at any point, I give myself a choice and I say, but I'm not moving towards that value, which I don't believe in, but I'm perhaps compromising on my own. And for now, that's okay. I'm making a conscious choice about that in that space. So thank you. That's a really good question. There's more opportunity for questions if anybody would like to ask any. So let's ask this final poll question then. So if you're thinking about planning you know what the next steps are for planning your own career, where are you now in relation to this question? Do you have some tools and techniques that you think, perhaps, okay, I could use those next year to help me, or even this year, even this weekend, to help me think about my career and where I'm going? And thank you. I can see many of you are voting in that space. Somebody's asking, how can we buy the books, and is there any possibility of buying the books in Vietnamese? So I don't know about that. The one book that might be available in Vietnamese, which is very widely published, is called What Color is Your Parachute? And there's a good chance that that is there. Let me type that book into the chat. It may well be translated, because it's been really available. I know I've seen it here in Singapore on the bookshelves, but it is one of the books that may be able to help you with that. Let me just close the poll and share the results. So many of you are saying yes, and some of you are saying, yeah, I've got some idea, and some are saying, No, I'm still a bit stuck with that question. Somebody else is asking, what if there's a change in career? So the corporate, moving from corporate to starting a business, how do you plan for that? Well, there's a whole lot of questions about that, but the first point is you do a very good plan. So you think about all of the concrete things like the financials and the so what's the minimum you need to earn, and you also begin to think about the market. And um, what I often say to people who ask me about this is it's usually not a finish a corporate job and start a business, finish a corporate job one day and start a business the next. Normally, you have to do a bit of transition period where you're doing both, where you're still working in your corporate job and building your business and starting to do that whilst you're doing that and thinking about that and planning that. And my encouragement to people is to do a bit of that, to really find the space, put the commitment in. And if we're really committed to that, that often is what happens. And certainly for my own experience of when I went out to start a company, in fact, and when I came to Singapore to do that, there is a period which is much harder where you kind of have to go both places to do that. So yeah, thank you. So again, if you have any other questions, please type them into the chat. Just while we're doing that, just to tell you a bit about our coach certification program. So we're running the program in a completely virtual environment, and a program which is focused on coaching people in the workplace. And we have so far on our program, we've had a really wide range of people. We've had people coming from HR, from senior and mid-level HR roles, and we've also had people coming from the business who have been training with us on the program, and you can see that here. And we've had people from all around both APAC and the EU in different time zones joining us, because the program is run using Zoom, so in a virtual environment, using video conferencing. And so that enables people to dial in from wherever they are. And just to tell you a bit about our coaching program. So first of all, it's focused on coaching at work and in organizations. So we're training coaches who will be able to either work as an internal coach or an external coach, or to use coaching skills and a coaching approach to their leadership. And we see a lot of people who are taking that learning into their leadership roles and are saying it's really impacting them. For example, they say that their one-to-ones and performance reviews have been completely transformed by going on the coaching journey. I strongly believe that you learn to be a coach by coaching. And so our coach certification program has a lot of practice. And we do that practice in a very safe environment. And I can see a couple of people on the webinar today who have been on the program. So I hope they would agree with me that really when in that practice, you get a lot of practice, a lot of very kind and generative feedback, and lots of opportunities to grow. And so people come out confident and skilled to be a competent coach. And if you're interested, we mix a lot of theory with practice, and we do design it so that it's for business professionals. So we've got two programs starting early in the new year. One is starting at 5:30 in the evening. That program starts in January, 5:30 Singapore time, and then another one starting in March at 2 p.m. Singapore time. If you come on the program, you have the required training time and also the mentor coaching to be an ICF accredited certified coach. If you're interested in this, you can join our preview sessions via baileybalfour.com, and I'm running a preview session next week, or you can get in touch with us via email, the team email, and we're very happy to book a call with you to have a conversation about that. And as I said, we have a program starting on the 16th of January. So it just leaves me to say thank you for joining us today. If you haven't already joined, please join our mailing list, and we continue to run regular lunchtime webinars. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me personally. I have access to the team email, so you can reach me that way. And I hope you have a good weekend, and I wish you well in reflecting on all your career successes in 2018 and looking forward to a very enjoyable and fulfilling career in 2019.